Carefully targeting your CDBG investment increases its impact. CDBG can act as a catalyst that brings private and public sector investment to distressed neighborhoods and provides affordable housing in areas of high opportunity. While specific partners may differ from rural areas to urban areas and from one part of the country to the next, CDBG should not work in isolation. Remember, transformative investment requires collaboration among multiple entities with funds from public and private sources. In one example of leveraging housing funds for a carefully chosen target area, the city of Hinesville, Georgia brought in several partners to redevelop one of its most troubled residential areas, Azalea Street. The result was the transformation of a key downtown neighborhood. One way the CDBG program supports neighborhood targeting is through the use of neighborhood revitalization strategy areas for entitlement communities and community revitalization areas in the state program. In an approved area, you may allocate CDBG funds to a community-based development organization for new construction of housing. You can also build homes for a mix of incomes by aggregating all of the houses as a single structure, so that 51% of the properties must be occupied by low and moderate income households. The beginning steps in targeting your housing investments are to understand your needs and your market as they relate to your community priorities. Obtain current real estate market, submarkets, and economic forecast information. This should include talking to real estate professionals about their observations. Key market data indicators help you identify and document pressing housing issues. You can find valuable information in American Community Survey data and local sources. 2 examples. A lack of affordable rental housing could be indicated by a drop in vacancy rates, particularly in lower-cost rental complexes, an increase in demand on emergency shelters, reductions in building permit activity, and rising rents in traditionally low and moderate income neighborhoods. Or, a first-time home buyer program may be necessary when median sales prices have increased while the amount of housing inventory has decreased. Lenders may report more homeowners unable to make the required down payments. After consultation with other community members, combine this data with the community priorities and housing and homeless needs assessment outlined in your consolidated plan to update your strategies. Analysis of indicators, local knowledge, and community input should inform the identification of issues and guide your housing investments. Determining where to target your housing program is critical. One resource is the Econ Planning Suite, an online set of tools developed by HUD, which provides planning data and custom reports for each jurisdiction. It includes 5-year American Community Survey data from the U.S. Census, public housing data, and business and employment characteristics. The CPD Maps tool allows grantees to analyze census and HUD program data geographically. Some geographic areas that grantees typically target include neighborhoods with substantial housing need. You can, for example, identify low-income census tracts with older housing or a neighborhood with many vacant, abandoned homes. Areas with other resources available, such as public land that can be used, a community or employment center nearby, or redevelopment funding availability. Low-income neighborhoods targeted for revitalization. Many grantees designate CDBG target areas in which they operate over multiple years in order to make a visible improvement to the neighborhood as well as helping the individual households. Gentrifying areas or neighborhoods at risk. CDBG housing investments can secure affordable housing in areas where property values are increasing. Program design should take into account the level of need in a neighborhood. Resources should match the needs of areas with extensive deterioration, or efforts will not achieve critical mass. You should also consider how you can use CDBG funds to support efforts to affirmatively further fair housing. This may mean investing CDBG funds to provide affordable, accessible housing in high-opportunity areas. In addition to where to target, who to target for assistance is also key. Often it makes sense to focus on vulnerable groups, like people who are elderly, homeless, poor, veterans, or disabled. You will need to piece together a full picture of a group's specific needs from multiple sources of information. These include demographic data, which can be found in such resources as the local continuum of care plan, behavioral and public health statistics, and Veterans Administration data. Your own planning documents, like the Consolidated Plan and Assessment of Fair Housing. In addition, your community may have a plan to end homelessness, or a local or regional economic or comprehensive plan with valuable information. Going beyond written data will provide new insights. Community advocacy organizations, such as the Local Council on Aging, Association for Persons with Mental Illness, or legal aid, can give you their perspectives on their priorities. Service providers have professional knowledge of service demand and gaps, and their input can be invaluable. For example, one community drilled down in the data and identified that a substantial portion of individuals experiencing homelessness were veterans. The city consulted with service providers and discovered that the area did not have any facilities for veterans. City staff were aware of a vacant, condemned building that was a blight to the neighborhood and well situated close to public transportation. The city renovated the building into 8 units of supportive housing for veterans. In another example, Durham, North Carolina targeted investment in an area of 125 acres located between downtown Durham and North Carolina Central University. The area was characterized by dilapidated housing stock, high vacancy rates, and poverty. They decided to create NRSA, a neighborhood revitalization strategy area, to revitalize this area through a combination of infrastructure improvements, housing rehabilitation, and new housing construction. By focusing on a targeted geographic area, pursuing multiple strategies, and leveraging investments, Durham worked to address the needs of this community and revitalize the neighborhood. Your community will have more needs than you can address in any one year. When you prioritize expenditures, take into account need, community goals, including goals set in your assessment of fair housing, project readiness, and financial feasibility. In the Hinesville, Georgia example, the city decided to prioritize the street with the poorest housing conditions and residential environment to redevelop first and to target assistance to existing homeowners. They knew it would take more resources than were available, so they phased the plan over several years, beginning with the area most severely in need. This illustrates the commitment necessary to redevelop areas with very poor housing, meaning only 20 to 30% of the need will likely fail. Your funding plan should complement your housing program goals. Look to leverage your limited CDBG funds. In deciding how to allocate your CDBG funds, research what other funding sources are available to address your priorities. For example, health departments and area aging agencies may have funding for ADA accessibility. Healthy homes and other state-operated agencies may have lead-based paint funding. Many states offer programs for historic preservation and other types of housing rehabilitation. Your goals should include leveraging your funds, covering a need not already addressed by other programs, and avoiding duplication of effort.
And so we go around and we get lots and lots of people to donate to these homes. And then once the homeowner has helped, build that house with their sweat equity hours, they then can get up to a 25-year mortgage. And we carry that mortgage, and we only charge what we have in it, what it costs to build, and then we have a 0% interest.
CDBG housing funding usually takes one of 3 forms: grants, CDBG loans, or loans made by a private lender with CDBG subsidy. Each of these financing methods can be leveraged. For example, leverage grants by requiring matching contributions from homeowners or an outside source. They can also be leveraged with sweat equity or donated labor. Create a revolving loan fund by providing CDBG loans. When the principal and interest on loans is repaid, the funds can be used to assist other properties. Use CDBG funds to provide loan guarantees or interest rate reductions to make private or other public sector loans more affordable. By combining home and CDBG funds, you can stretch your resources further. Home participating jurisdictions fund the production and rehabilitation of housing for sale or rent to lower income households. CDBG funds can be used to acquire, clear, and/or dispose of property that will be built or rehabilitated with home assistance. Fund rehabilitation also supported by the home program. Fund home program delivery costs, including inspections, loan processing, and management of tenant-based rental assistance programs. Pay administrative costs for the home program, as the home program only allows 10% for its administration. These funds are subject to the CDBG administrative cap. When using home and CDBG on the same property, it's important to remember that the regulations sometimes differ. In that case, you must follow the most restrictive rules. For example, CDBG-funded construction work over $2,000 with 8 or more units triggers Davis-Bacon wages. For the home program, Davis-Bacon wages are triggered for any contact for the construction of 12 or more home-assisted units. If renovating an apartment complex with both sources of funds, the more restrictive CDBG regulations would apply. In another example, home requires rehabilitated houses to be brought up to local property standards. CDBG does not have that requirement, so a house funded with both sources would need to adhere to the more restrictive rules. Thanks for watching Targeting and Leveraging Resources. You can end here or watch another video by clicking below.